So I've made a lot of progress on the Grand Classic this week, and I'm going to talk about some of the things I've changed briefly, and some of the things I'm going to do next week. So here we have the board, and you can see the scattering devastation of parts I've ripped out and gone, no, wrong part. There. So there was some problems with the mid-range. It just didn't sound right, and eventually I realized I needed another buffer in there, so I've jammed in another buffer. Now, because of this buffer, I'm going to try something out next week. So that means I'm short a stage, and I don't want to put a whole new op-amp chip on, so I'm thinking I might put a MOSFET or a FET input, which is really cool. So FET input sounds even more like a tube amp than anything. It's like the most tube amp kind of component you'll ever have. So a FET input buffer would be really cool. So I'm going to try that. But if it's too noisy, because they can be a little noisy at times, and this is a very high gain pedal, if it introduces noise, then I'm going to put an output buffer a bit like Quad Screamer, Tube Screamer use. So this is pretty cool. This means that the mid control is now more powerful. And I fine-tuned this, and originally I was going to have a sort of UK mids thing where we had swap between American and UK. But it was too subtle. I think if you had it on a frequency, it'd be fine. So I played with it and I came up with something really, really, really cool. So it's not going to be called UK mids, it's going to be called fat mids. And these are like a really low mid-range. So you have a traditional mid-range band and a really low fat mid-range band. So this is a really cool switch. I worked on the deep switch a lot because again I felt that the bass boost wasn't good enough. Now I'm not 100% happy with this, but I'm now 80% happy with it. It's really fat, it's really big, it's just a little bit too woofy. I need to tighten it up slightly. I think the Q's a little off. So this is really cool. And I think I'm going to change the name of this because Deep is used by a certain other amplifier company with a squirrely name begins in M, and so I think I might call it Chuggy or something. I don't use chug because chug's another word that's like super used. Chug, but I like chuggy or something. We worked that one out. And I thought the core switch is ambiguous. So the core switch is like that, like I said, it's a big broad ranged, mid-range kind of boost that lifts you out the mix. That is spot on. This sounds amazing. I'm so happy with this. And I think I'm just going to call it crunch because it sounds more like a crunch to me than this ambiguous core. So we're going to have like a crunch, maybe a chug, maybe a kind of, what did I say, fat mid. And I keep looking at the front panel of this pedal. And you know, I've got, well, the design that's floating out there had two switches on because I was worried I wouldn't have enough space on the board, wasn't I? And then I jammed a third in, and I didn't have space on the board anyway, so I had to shrink the components, and I've had to use two boards. So now I've actually got a little bit of space on the board, maybe. Not sure. And I'm kind of thinking, do you know what? This would be really cool if we had four switches like the Quad Screamer. And you know, I've made you guys wait months longer than I said, and I'm thinking, maybe this is my way to make up for it. So I'm going to try this next week, and no promises, but if I can cram it on the board and if we can fit the input, I might add another switch. And this switch, if I add it, is going to be, I think it's going to be a smooth switch because this pedal at the moment sounds so thrash metal. I really need to record your clips. It's tight and crunchy. And I do not want to get rid of that, but I know that some of you guys are going to say, well, that's too much and I can't use that. And I'd like, because one of the features I'm advertising is the ability to dial the gain back. This is going to be really high gain. It's going to do thrash, but also be sensitive and alive. And it is. So I'm thinking this smooth thing takes a little more of the edge off the thrash for those of you who don't want to be missed metal all day long. Da 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 da. Slayer. You know, some of you might just want to be like, kind of groovy Slayer. So I'm thinking maybe we can get a fourth switch. So that's plans for next week. I'm going to fine-tune those, see if the switch works, see if we can get the MOSFET input working. I've also got the relay here. Look how small this relay is. I'm just going to check that works in circuit. I'm like, nah, yeah, it's a relay. It's going to work. I just want to make sure it doesn't pop. So, yeah, that's the progress this week. I'm really pleased with it. It sounds really good. You need in-play clips. I know. I will get to it next week. This week has just been draining. But, you know, we're up to speed, and I'm so chuffed about that. So, yeah, see you guys next week.